I'm going with Rachel Lawson. It happened on a Sunday in early November. The kind of gray Tennessee afternoon where the sky looks bruised and the air smells like wood smoke and coming rain. I'd driven 6 hours from Nashville to Franklin just for this dinner, carrying a bottle of good red wine and the stupid, stubborn hope that this time things might feel different. Mom had made her famous pot roast. Dad had actually put on a clean shirt. Sophie had set the table with the good plates. The ones with the tiny blue flowers that only came out for birthdays or funerals. I remember thinking, maybe this is it. Maybe we're finally gonna be okay. We weren't. I was reaching for the gravy boat when Dad cleared his throat the way he does when he's about to say something. He's rehearsed in the truck all week. His eyes were fixed on the tablecloth like it had personally offended him. Rachel, he said, voice flat as the fields outside. We've talked it over, and we've decided we don't want your money anymore. Mom didn't even look up from cutting her meat. She just nodded once, sharp, like she was checking an item off a list. And we don't want you either. Sophie smiled the smallest, meanest smile I've ever seen on a human face and added, nobody needs your money or you, Ratch. We're good? The gravy boat slipped in my hand and clattered against my plate. Brown sauce splashed across the white tablecloth like blood. Nobody flinched. Nobody reached for a napkin. They just sat there, watching me, waiting for me to cry or yell or beg. I did none of those things. I set the gravy boat down very carefully, wiped my fingers on my jeans, and said, okay? That was it, one word. Okay. Then I stood up, walked out my napkin on the chair, and walked out the front door without another syllable. I didn't slam it. I didn't look back. I just left the house I grew up in, the house I had paid the property taxes on for 8 straight years, the house whose mortgage I had quietly paid down to almost nothing, and I never went back. People think silence is weak. They're wrong. Silence is where power lives when words have been weaponized against you. Let me take you back so you really understand how deep this wound goes. I grew up in that same small brick house on Maple Street, where every neighbor knows how much you take your coffee and exactly how much your daddy makes. Money was never just tight. It was a living thing that strangled us every single day. Dad worked at the John Deere dealership, came home smelling like diesel and defeat. Mom cleaned offices at night after sewing quilts all day for extra cash. Some winters the heat got shut off. Some months we ate so much oatmeal I still can't smell cinnamon without feeling panic in my throat. I was the older one, the responsible one. The one teachers always said was going places. Translation: the one who had to fix everything. When I was 10 and Sophie was 8, the bank sent a foreclosure notice. I found Mom crying over it at the kitchen table at 2 a.m. I didn't understand all the words, but I understood the terror on her face. That night I made a promise to myself I would get us out. I would make so much money that no one I loved would ever have to feel that fear again. I kept that promise until the people I loved told me they didn't want it anymore. High school was a blur of AP classes, coding clubs, and working nights at the grocery store. I taught myself Python on a second-hand laptop that wheezed like an old man at church gave me, because his wife had died and he didn't need it anymore. I won state coding competitions. I got a full ride to Vanderbilt, then a job offer in Silicon Valley before I even graduated. When I left Franklin at 22, I cried the whole flight to California. Not because I was scared of the future, but because I was terrified of what I was leaving behind. But I sent money home every single month. Not sometimes, every single month. 10 years. Rent payments when Dad got laid off. Medical bills when Mom's knee gave out. The down payment on Sophie's boutique, Blossom and Thread. when she called me sobbing that the bank laughed her out of the building, the custom shelving units, the inventory loans, the gorgeous black Land Rovers she needed for deliveries and photo shoots, that somehow became her daily driver for Starbucks runs. I paid for her wedding flowers when Ryan proposed in front of that stupid cherry tree she loves. I paid for the honeymoon resort in Mexico when their venue flooded 2 weeks before the wedding. I never asked for credit. I never asked for thanks. I just wanted them to be safe. And every time I came home, I felt the temperature drop 5 degrees colder than the last visit. Little comments that sounded like jokes but weren't. Must be nice to have tech money. Careful, Rachel? Your city is showing. You wouldn't understand, you're never here. Sophie started calling my help, charity, to her friends. Mom started saying, "We don't want to be a burden," in a tone that made it clear she absolutely did want to be a burden, just not to me specifically. I told myself I was being sensitive. I told myself family is complicated. I told myself love looks different for everyone. Then came that Sunday dinner, after Mom said, "We don't want you either." Something inside me that had been cracking for years finally split clean open. Not heartbreak. Clarity. I drove to the Holiday Inn Express on the edge of town, checked into a room that smelled like bleach and old carpet, and sat on the bed in the dark for a long time. My phone kept lighting up. Sophie posting Instagram stories from the boutique 20 minutes after I left, laughing with customers caption, "Sundays with my people friend blessed for self-made." Self-made. I opened my banking app and stared at the automatic transfers I'd set up years ago. Mortgage supplement. Property taxes. Sophie's business line of credit. Land Rover payment. Insurance. Phone plan. Yes, I was still paying her phone plan at 31 years old. I turned every single one of them off. Then I called the dealership and initiated repossession on the Land Rover that was still titled in my name. Then I emailed the bank and removed myself as co-signer on Blossom and Thread's business loan, effective immediately. Then I turned my phone face down and slept better than I had in a decade. The next morning, Franklin woke up to a show. The repo truck came at 9:17 a.m. Sophie ran outside in her pajamas, screaming at the driver, while half the neighborhood filmed on their phones. By 10:30, the Franklin Moms Facebook group was on fire. By noon, the bank had frozen the boutique's accounts for missed payments. By 2:00 p.m., Ryan had moved his bags and moved into his brother's basement because, as he told his mom on the phone loud enough for the whole coffee shop to hear, "I didn't sign up to marry a liar." Sophie called me 47 times that day. I let everyone go to voicemail. The voicemails were a masterclass in escalation. First, tears, confusion. "Rachel, what is happening? Please call me." 7th, bargaining. "We can figure this out. I'll pay you back, I swear." 19th, rage. "You're destroying my life over one stupid comment." 33rd, pure venom. "I always knew you were jealous of me." 47th, broken. Tiny voice I hadn't heard since we were kids. "Ratch, I'm scared." I listened to that last one twice. Then I deleted them all. 2 days later, I flew back to San Francisco. I didn't say goodbye to anyone. 6 months after that, Blossom and Thread closed its doors. The cute handmade sign came down. The fairy lights got tangled and thrown in a dumpster. Sophie moved back into Mom and Dad's house at 31 years old with 3 suitcases and a rescue dog she couldn't afford to feed. Mom started cleaning houses again. Dad sold his fishing boat. And me, I bought a little house in No Valley with a lemon tree in the backyard. I started therapy. Real therapy, not the kind where you just vent to your group chat. I learned that love is not a debt someone else gets to keep running up forever. I learned that family is not a magic word that excuses cruelty. I learned that the sound of my own laughter in my own kitchen at 2 a.m. with friends who actually like me is the sweetest sound in the world. Sometimes people message me and say, "Aren't you afraid of regrets? What if something happens to them?" I think about the night I found that foreclosure notice when I was 10. I think about all the years I spent trying to buy a love that was never for sale. I think about the way Sophie looked at me across the dinner table, like I was an ATM that had finally stopped dispensing cash and become an inconvenience. And I sleep like a baby. Because here's the truth they never understood. I didn't take anything away from them. I just stopped giving them things they never earned. There's a difference. If you've ever been the family bank account with legs, if you've ever been the one who held everything together while everyone else pretended the rope wasn't cutting into your hands, if you've ever smiled while someone erased you from the story they were telling about their own success, this one's for you. You are allowed to put the rope down. You are allowed to walk away. You are allowed to build a life that doesn't require you to shrink so others can stand tall on your shoulders. And when they come crawling back, and so many of them do, with their apologies and their "we didn't mean it," and their "blood is thicker than water," they always conveniently forget the full quote is, "The blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb." You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to protect your peace like it's the most precious thing you own. Because it is. I'm Rachel Lawson. I live in San Francisco now. I have a lemon tree and friends who would burn the world down for me, and a heart that finally belongs to me again. And if you're watching this and you needed to hear that you're not crazy for wanting to be chosen back, drop your city in the comments. I read every single one. Subscribe if these stories help you feel less alone. Hit the bell so you never miss an update. And remember, your silence isn't surrender. Sometimes it's the moment you finally start winning.